Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. And I guess this is going to have to be also a bit of a week in review as well. Obviously, I didn't put out any content this week. Needed a bit of a break. It's been a bit of a rough week. Been a bit of a rough month. But we pushed through, and ultimately I had to sum up everything that kind of takes place this weekend. There was quite a lot going on. So with that being said, I guess before I even get into some of the action, let's just have a look at some of the stuff that's basically taken place over the week. So from last week, you had Shakur Stevenson was, pretty much on the circuit, looking who he would be looking to sign with in terms of his next deal or his next venture. Oscar De La Hoya since came out and said that, he's withdrawing himself from the race because basically he wants people that are going to come to fight and love the fans and want to give it all to the fans. He doesn't feel that is Shakur, so he's moving on. Shakur ultimately said, nah, Oscar's capping. He only's pulling himself out of the race because he already knew I wasn't going to sign with him, etc, etc. So that's that one down. You've obviously got Eddie Hearn out there potentially looking at it, but with Eddie not having any champions or big name fighters at 135 and having to ultimately rely, I guess, on the cooperation of someone like Oscar De La Hoya or Bob Arum, if he were to sign Shakur Stevenson, chances are he's probably going to end up bowing out of that race as well, which would therefore mean Shakur could probably end up getting back to top rank. I mean, there's worse moves that could be made, to be honest, but that seems to be where we're heading. I guess we'll have to wait and see what kind of happens with that moving forward. Also, Derek Chisora is, I guess he was in the news for what we would see as a headbutt against a Deliveroo driver, but from the footage that came out, it very much looks as if whatever did occur, whether a headbutt landed, whether it was just motion towards or whatever, the police have said no further action required, because within the footage you can see that Derek Chisora, well within his right to I guess citizen's arrest / accost the driver due to him being on the pavement, which is illegal. He ain't supposed to be driving peds and bikes on the pavement. And then the driver then gets aggressive with Chisora, and ultimately Chisora meets that aggression with better aggression and ends up finishing that situation. So yeah, no further action to be taken, which is the right move, but then is also, it's just another mark in the in the book of Chisora, because there's always something that's happening. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that parlays into his fight next weekend, which, speaking of, they released their version of the face-off, face-to-face, what's the other one they call it, not toe-to-toe, what's the one that Sky Sports call it? Anyway, that program, the gloves are off, that's it. So they've now got their version on TNT Sports, which they've called Locked In, which the concept I think is a little bit cheesy, where you put them in the room and then you lock the door and then make the two of them speak. I mean, yeah, okay, fine. Well, Dev Sani hosting, well done Dev for getting yet another gig on TNT and Queensbury. The amount of checks he must be getting, he can't just be getting one employee check. It's got to be multifaceted, because he does everything. He's the ring announcer, he's a commentator, he's a host, he's now hosting side programming. He also hosts some of their shoulder programming on the TNT Sports and the Queensbury channels as well. So several different hats. Shout out to Dev. I made it through about half of it, and then I think I fell asleep afterwards, not because it wasn't good, but yeah, number one, I was tired, but it wasn't really an engaging thing. You got Derek obviously telling Joe Joyce, you're not really about this life. This isn't really you. Yeah, you can fight, but you're more of a protector. You're not really active. Your whole team's a bunch of cowards, and I could go up to every single one of them and say that, and not one of them would do anything. You could go up to my team and try and say the same thing, and it would go off, and this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, cool. One thing I will say though, I don't know if this is due to maybe putting on the extra weight, but Joe Joyce looks like he's aged about 10 years overnight. He looked like a really old man sitting there. And I mean, that's not to say that Chisora isn't old himself, but last year Joe Joyce looked fairly youthful still. He looked like he was still someone in their early 30s, early to mid 30s. He's looking closer to like, mid 40s now. And like I said, that maybe it was just bad lighting. Maybe it was a camera that just happened to expose everything. But yeah, it doesn't, to me, bode well for next week. But I mean, both guys are in a similar predicament, so that should hopefully balance things out. In terms of I know Carl Froch had a show. I think it was Question Time with Froch on his channel, Froch on Fighting, and Anthony Joshua. He sent in a question asking about Carl fighting for a vacant title, which was quite funny, obviously, because Carl was referencing the fact that Dubois and AJ shouldn't be for a title, and even if it is it should be for a vacant title. Like, Dubois shouldn't have just been handed a title. It devalues the title, etc., etc. So obviously Joshua's come in with the question, sort of taking light jabs at the fact that I think that was the first title that Carl Froch won, happened to be a vacant world title, I guess similar to the way that Daniel Dubois did, except he actually got elevated after fighting for the interim itself. So yeah, all of that was all fun and games, pretty cool. I can't really remember if there was anything else throughout the week that was noteworthy. I guess maybe the fact that Terence Crawford decided to make a little appearance on WWE SmackDown Friday. Obviously, they was situated from Omaha, Nebraska, so he got a little bit of screen time. And they held him up. They called him the consensus #1 pound for pound boxer in the world. And then they was talking about the Madrimov fight and that he'd be fighting that fight. They was promoting that fight as well. So you can see that this whole Saudi reach is quite vast. And the fact that obviously WWE do a lot of stuff with Saudi Arabia, I guess even though they may not be all in all the same organization, it probably makes sense that they've got all of that together. So that's a nice little big booster for Terence Crawford. Handed Cody Rhodes a chair in the main segment, and then I guess off camera it must have been maybe in the break or maybe before the show. Maybe it might have even actually been just after SmackDown went off the air. Obviously him and Austin Theory and Grayson Waller got into it in the ring, and then Crawford knocked out Austin Theory in the middle of the ring for the Omaha crowd. So yeah, all good fun. And then roll on, I guess, the 3rd of August, which is 3 weeks away now. The only bad thing about that, and the joke is obviously they were promoting it on WWE, but it also takes place on the same day as SummerSlam. No doubt it's going to be at the same time as well. So while I was looking to do a watch along for it, and I may still do so, I don't know now, because maybe I might want a dual screen. I might want to watch SummerSlam on one screen, I might want to watch the boxing on the other. What I may have to do though is I may do the watch along, but I'm gonna have to to ban certain people from commenting, because there will be some people that will comment and will tell me the results of SummerSlam before I'm able to actually watch it. I'm going to stay off of all socials and then I'll try and watch it afterwards, but we'll see. We'll come to that bridge when it's closer to the time. So till then we'll kind of wait and see. But that's pretty much all the stuff that kind of happened during the week that I can remember that I found fairly relevant. Then first thing Saturday morning, we ended up getting, Friday night, there was a Golden Boy, a Friday Night Fights card on the Zone, headlined by Alexis Rocha. Who was he fighting again? And I'm gonna have to actually, there's so many, I'm gonna have to get the names off of my other phone. 1 second. I remember it was a guy from Mexico. It was 27 and 20 at the time. Oops, that's the wrong person. It's this one here, Alexis Rocha. He was facing Santiago Dominguez. That's it. 27 and 0 at the time. And he won that fight via unanimous decision. I haven't seen the entire card. I was trying to watch it, but then there was just so much other stuff to sort of take note of. Obviously, straight after that, we rolled into Saturday morning, where we had the card in Japan, which was headlined by Junto Nakatani against Vincent Astrolabio, which on the undercard there was also Tenshin Nasukawa versus Jonathan Rodriguez. And I've been keeping an eye on Jonathan Rodriguez ever since he basically retired Kao Yafai, but since then he has lost his last two fights via stoppage. One was corner retirement, and this one I haven't actually been able to see the fight yet because I wasn't able to watch the show live, but I do know that that Tenshin Nasukawa got the KO, so he's now 4-0 with 2 KOs, so 50% KO ratio, bit like Travis J, shout out. But then Anthony Olisquega got the KO victory over Riku Kanu, and he basically is now the flyweight, I think it's the WBO. I think he's won the WBO flyweight title. He last competed for a title at light fly against Kenshiro Taraji, and I think that was on like a week's notice or something like that, or 2 weeks notice. So he accounted himself pretty well, but he wasn't skilled enough. He just wasn't experienced enough to be able to sort of get through that fight, but he put up a good account while he was there. Then main event of that, ultimately Junto Nakatani, he beat Vincent Astrolabio in the first round, KO or TKO technically in the first round, brutal body shot, so I'm assuming that when Astrolabio sort of backed out of the shot, he maybe tried to breathe in as the shot was landing, which basically delayed reaction took him down. He got up, he managed to get up on the 8 count. Referee said, "Are you okay?" and he folded back down to the floor. So Nakatani, setting up himself for those unifications at 118. Ultimately, we all know his goal is to face Junto Nakatani, to face Naoya Inoue, at 122 in the future. So if he can get those other belts wrapped up quick enough, which may cause a problem, that is ultimately what he's going to be looking to do next. Moving on from there, it was the Queensbury show. Now, I've only seen the last 4. I saw the event from the last 2 rounds of the Ezra Taylor fight, as I was sort of busy doing something. So I do know that the Owen Cooper and Eku Esserman fight apparently was like a great British Fight of the Year contender. I have to get back to watching that one, and I will do so. But I know obviously the result of the fight, and I saw all the knockdowns from sort of the 9th round where Eku Esserman got put down to obviously the 10th round where he managed to stop Owen Cooper, which, gotta give him props for that. That was the second time he had Cooper down in the fight, but it looked like it was a spirited back and forth effort. So yeah, I will be sort of taking a look at that one a bit later on. Trying to think what else was there before the Ezra Taylor fight. Let me check on my phone real quick. Right, I know Shabazz Masood was on before the Bell. Oh, Zach Parker and Jack Arnold. Yeah, Parker got a KO victory, as I expected he kind of would. Ezra Taylor, I didn't, like I said, I only saw the last two and a half rounds, 3 rounds. Looked competent enough, but Lamella came to win. Carlos Lamella, shout out to him. He seemed tough, durable, and gave Ezra the rounds he needed, especially this being his very first 10-rounder. Need that experience, need to know what it's like to go those extra rounds. He did that. Seemed like the gas tank held out pretty well. So, shout out to him. After that, Solomon Dacus against what's his name? Michael Webster? Mike Webster. Look, first things first, congratulations, because Solomon Dacus, he got the stoppage. He, last time he labored to a victory against Webster, and I actually think that Webster won that fight, if I'm honest. At the absolute worst, I think it was a draw, the first one. Now, obviously, this one, Solomon took it out of the judges' hands. But that being said, prior to when he knocked down Webster the first time, and even the second time when the fight eventually got stopped, it was still a very, very boring fight to watch. He still did not look comfortable exchanging. He looked very timid to get stuck in and get involved. Now, part of that, he broke the guy down. He did what he was supposed to do, so fair enough. But that, to me, definitely had to have, from what I saw of the card, was the least entertaining fight on the card. And that's obviously something that you don't really want to have associated with you when you're a heavyweight, more than other weight classes. Okay, fair enough, you could say that, but heavyweights, where the knockouts and action and anything can happen, is supposed to be key. You're supposed to be entertaining people, and I was watching that fight thinking, this is just more of the same. There's no progression here. Maybe there might be a little bit of hands letting go a bit more, but yeah. I mean, look, I gave my opinions on Solomon Dacus, his career, and where I think he's going, and his level of ability before, and it hasn't changed. I'm gonna keep it the same way, but at least he did take it out of the judges' hands this time, so I'm gonna give him the credit for that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say about that one. A fight where I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to address the Chantel Cameron versus LM Mekhaled fight. And the reason I want to address this one is because the commentary and the pundits and the analysts, as they were pro. I mean, obviously, look, okay, you're going to be pro Queensberry, I get that, but the level of pro Queensberryness they were. Maybe it's because this is Chantel Cameron's very first fight with them, and they need to try and build her up and make her seem larger than life. But I'm sorry, if you're calling that fight correctly, and if you're calling the action as you're seeing it, you are going to be telling people that Chantel Cameron, after the first 2 rounds, because she won those first 2 rounds very, very comfortably, I give that to her. It almost looked like she could have stopped LM from the first round, but from round 3 onwards, she was in a back and forth in a fight. Now, yes, she was throwing more punches than LM Mekhaled was. She was landing more punches, but a lot of her punches were also landing on gloves, or they were missing, or they were being blocked. You don't score a shot that lands on the gloves. That's a blocked shot. It doesn't count. So when you see a situation like that, and you see her being given credit for shots that aren't landing, but then the other person is not even being given any kind of consideration for the fact that there's actually left hooks landing on your chin in public, like in clear view of everyone, or straight rights, or you're getting caught in between in the exchanges and getting lit up, and and they're just basically bypassing all of that to say, oh well, she's doing well to stay in the fight and stay on her feet here. Like, that's not the way that the fight was going. And the fact that they tried to just basically gloss over all of that was, to me, was crazy. And Chantel, very, very good accomplished fighter, but I've noticed that she when she's in these type of fights, she wants to just be dirty in there, like use the elbows, use the forearms, and just push back rather than actually use her boxing skills. Because I feel that when they was actually when they were exchanging, when they were actually boxing, LM was getting the best of her. It's only because Chantel was the bigger, stronger, more roughish girl, was able just to sort of back her off that way. But she was eating punches, like I said, from round 3 to round 10. Now, I'm not saying that she lost all of those rounds, because she didn't. But the fact that, they was all basically says, oh, we've pretty much got a shout. There's maybe one round that we think we give LM. That's BS. And it goes to show, because there was the one judge who scored it 95-95. Now, I admit that was too close. Like, LM didn't win 5 rounds, but I had her winning 3. I even had her possibly getting a share of a 4th. I would have to go back and rescore the fight, but there was definitely, I was initially looking at a 97-94 type card, 97-93. I saw some people say possibly even 96-94. So I can understand those. The cards that I don't understand is a 99-92. So you're basically giving her a share of 1 round, but you're saying she only won 1. And then a 98-92 card, which you're saying she won 2 out of the 10. Again, that just didn't reflect what I saw and what a lot of other people, I guess, on the internet saw as well. Now, I'm not saying Chantel didn't win the fight conclusively. She did. But those scorecards, to me, and the commentary just showed me that they weren't looking to give LM any credit whatsoever, and she never really had the chance of winning the fight. So even though I thought the scorecard was incorrect, shout out to that judge that did have it 95-95, because at least he was scoring the fight subjectively for all of those clean counters that Chantel Cameron was eating throughout the fight. After that was Ashley Lane and Andrew Kane. I think everyone predicted that Andrew Kane was going to win this. He just had the big knockout record. Ashley Lane, probably had the more fights and more experience in that side, but just feather-fisted, was never really going to survive. So that's kind of is what it was. And then we had Nathan Heaney versus Brad Pauls. Now, I watched this fight, and I was watching from early on, and surprisingly, it came on at a fairly decent time. So usually that doesn't happen when it comes to Magnificent 7 cards. But it was on before 10:30, which was a result. Heaney looked a bit tentative in those first couple of rounds. He was winning them, but he didn't look as fluid or as calm as he used to. I don't know if that coincides with him shaving off the mustache, because that stash seemed to have given him powers, and those powers quickly evaporated. But Brad Pauls managed to get onto the front foot from about round 4, round 5 onwards, and it just looked like from there it was downhill for Nathan Heaney. Just a big trajectory, a lot of punches, a lot of hard shots. Now, I actually fell asleep before the TKO in the 12th, so I actually didn't see it live. Subsequently, I had to go back and watch it, but just based on what I saw, I knew pretty much the writing was on the wall that Nathan Heaney was about to lose his undefeated streak and lose that British title, and I think it was a WBA Intercontinental or a WBA title as well that was on the line. So look, shout out to Brad Pauls. He done his thing. He felt that he was hard done by in the first fight. Now, I do think Heaney just about nicked the first one, but he made this one conclusive, and he didn't allow it to go to scorecards, even though I think he was about to get this one unanimously. Apparently they want to both run it back for a trilogy, which I think would make a lot of sense, and possibly if they could even get that one at the Stoke ground, that now brings up a really big gate and a big crowd and a big following. So let's see what they do with that. But yeah, shout out to both guys, but a special big shout outs to Brad Pauls. Now, usually I wouldn't really be commenting on a Jake Paul fight card per se, but for this one I actually do want to, because there was enough boxers on the undercard, enough proper, what we would say proper boxing on the undercard to warrant it. What's his name? Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was on the undercard against Uriah Hall, who had obviously from MMA had one professional fight previously, so he was coming into his second pro fight. This was at light heavyweight. No, sorry, this was at cruiserweight. I mean, look, Chavez, he was better as a boxer comprehensively, but He showed a lot to be desired, and he showed that there's just not a lot left in him. And you know, it's only the fact that Hall is a ranked novice in the boxing ring, how he really able to navigate, although he did do some good work in there, you know, very, very, very sporadically, but no engine, no gas tank. It was just, yeah, it was it wasn't the best of times for him, I should say. But on the undercard, there was also a fight between what's his name, Austin H2O Silv against what's his name, what's his name, Lucas, I think it's Lucas Prince Baldy. This fight has to arguably have the knockout of the year #1 contender in it. Sylvie was basically bossing the fight from round 1 all the way through to round 6, very rarely getting hit with anything. But then he started, you know, he's 20 years old, so he started basically feeling himself, no diddy, and was trying to style in there. He was trying to switch it, but he started to drop his hands and leave his hands low rather than keep them up and guard himself the way he had been doing previously in the fight. And as a result, he got caught with a straight right, which basically, as he dipped down, caught him. Then he dipped, as he's coming back up, he got hit with another straight right and then a quick left hook off the end of that, which basically planted him straight on the ground. He was down on the ground motionless for at least a minute and a half. And surprisingly, again, in the US, they did not bring an oxygen mask or anything. People just crowded around him, sucking up all the air that's around this guy while he's switched off, lights off, down on the floor. I don't know why they don't employ oxygen over in America, but that to me was a situation where oxygen was definitely needed to get to the brain. But yeah, that knockout was vicious, and I don't know how many others will be able to beat it this year, quite frankly. What else was on that card? There was also Amanda Serrano against Stacey Morgan. Amanda Serrano won that in second round stoppage. Referee jumped in. Morgan was 14. I think she was 14-1 with 13 KOs. But you look at her, she's extremely crude. No upper body movement, no lateral movement. Footwork was horrible, like chin up in the air. Yeah. And I don't know who she was hitting with to get the 13 KOs, because it didn't look like she had any pop or any correct punching technique whatsoever. So yeah, it was literally just a light touch over to keep Amanda ticking over for her next fight. But to be fair, Amanda, she looked good. She was weighing in 136 pounds. She looked like she belonged at that weight. She didn't look like puffy. She didn't look like she was carrying too much bulk. It looked like the right kind of size for her. She said she got a nutritionist in now. So if that's the case, and she's doing things the right way, where she said last time she was just eating cake and burgers and stuff to try and to eat her way up to the lightweight limit, well, she's looking good. And if she can keep this one up, then ultimately Katie Taylor might be in trouble on the in November. Obviously, I always thought Katie beat her the first time conclusively. I predicted she would. She did. This time, I'm not sure where I'm leaning. I need to see them both closer to it. But the fact that Katie's taken the extra time off, I don't know how it's gonna look to her. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing that. Ultimately, ending it with Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Now this, it's another boxer versus MMA thing that Jake Paul likes to do, or bare knuckle fighting, I guess, is what Mike Perry does at the moment. Look, Jake Paul pretty much bossed it from round 1 to round 6 when it ended, but he did eat some shots in there himself. He got tired after the first round. He was breathing extremely heavy in the corner from the end of round 2. Throwing all these power punches. He was expecting to get Perry out of there, but Perry showed the chin. He showed grit, determination, and then he sort of came back a bit in the third and the fourth, and he actually landed some pretty good shots on Jake Paul. He just didn't have the engine or the size or the mobility to be able to do it sustained. So yeah, with that kind of being said, Jake Paul ends up knocking him down once in the first, once in the second, again in the sixth, and then he got up, Perry. Referee told him walk to the left. He hopped over to the left, and then he stumbled. So whether that was his legs weren't under him or he tripped, the referee said no. I've seen enough, and that was pretty much the end of that. So the Mike Tyson fight is back on for November, where obviously Amanda Serrano will face Katie Taylor in the rematch at 140 pounds this time, for the undisputed 140 crown. And then who else did he say he wanted? Jake Paul said he wanted to fight someone else after that. I think it's the light heavyweight UFC champion, Alex, wasn't it? Alex something. I forget. I know who he's talking about. It's the guy that fought. Stylebender. Is it Alex Oliveira? Alex Oliveira. Yeah. But anyway, he said that he wants to fight him after Mike Tyson. But obviously, you know, what's his name? Why is my head gone blank? Dana White. He's not gonna allow that. Alex Pereira, that's it, Alex Pereira. Yeah, he's not gonna allow any of his UFC guys to face Jake Paul. We all know how Dana operates anyway. But yeah, from everything I can remember, that's pretty much everything that happened throughout this week that I had any interest in, and to this weekend. I've still got some stuff to watch. Content will be back this weekend in full fashion, more casual streams, possibly more guests coming on the channel. Episodes will be back as well. Basis picks will be back. Apologies that didn't come out. I know a few people were messaging, sort of asking where that was. Yeah, it's just one of those weeks. I needed some time away from doing anything other than my mandatory duties at my workplace. So yeah, with that being said, I will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for riding with me, for those who obviously been here from day one up till now and continue to support. I appreciate you all. But until then, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.